Thank you so much for setting that lovely tone. Are we on here? Okay. Can I have a little more volume? Thank you. Okay. Let me a little shout out for our Sunday starter program. That's the 9 a.m. Sunday school we have for adults now. Next week and the week after, we'll be talking about the historical Jesus. We'll be trying to separate the Jesus of history from all that metaphor that's in there as well. We'll just give it a shot, and it's again 2 Sundays in a row, and I'll be leading that. So know that comes early next week at 9. Dear God, we ask your presence among us, that our hearts might be opened and that they also might be softened. Remake us, we ask. Amen. Some of you know I write poetry as a side gig. I'd written prose, fiction, and nonfiction for years, but at around the age of 50, about 50 years ago, I realized the power of compression that makes poetry special and powerful. And I was drawn more and more to poetry because in it, nothing is wasted. Every word counts and every line can stand alone, sometimes, hopefully, as an important statement. So I prefer to read fiction and nonfiction where the author is spare and precise as well. So the upshot as a reader is I'm not very patient. If the author doesn't give me something that grabs me in the first few sentences, I tune out. And it really helps if the first line is a humdinger. Often those lines that don't bother to begin in the beginning are the best. They take you right to the beating heart of the narrative. So here are some first lines that work that way. Alice Walker's The Color Purple begins, "You better not never tell nobody but God. It'd kill your mammy." There's a definite hook right there. The beginning of Absalom, Absalom by William Faulkner creates a whole world. For a little after 4 o'clock until almost sundown of the long, still, hot, weary, dead September afternoon, they sat in what Miss Caulfield called the office because her father had called it that. A dim, hot, airless room with the blinds all closed and fastened for 43 summers because when she was a girl, someone had believed that sight and moving air carried heat and that dark was always cooler. The best ones are short. Here's the opening of Zora Neale Hurston's novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God. Ships at a distance have every man's wish on board. My favorite opening is by Charles Bukowski. The first thing I remember is being under something. Sometimes the key to the whole narrative is right there in those first words. Well, in today's text, the parable we usually call the prodigal son, the very first sentence of that parable is supremely important. There was a man who had 2 sons. That first sentence is significant because it could just have easily have begun, there was a man whose son did something unspeakable. First time I preached that text, I was a total novice. On summer break from seminary, I preached at Mackenzie River Presbyterian Church down in Walterville, just outside of Eugene. I delivered a whole sermon about the younger son, the whole thing. Anyway, I was sitting down after, and someone piped up with just the critique I needed and deserved. She said, "What about the older brother?" I'd left him out completely. And she had noticed, and she was right. I hadn't done right by the text. I had taken 20 minutes and only preached half the sermon, and it was the wrong half. In some ways, focusing on the young son, though, is understandable. After all, he's the flashy one. the one whose life is a fascinating scandal that grabs your attention. He's the one, who asks his father for money, and then as soon as he can get out the front door, he lights out for a land far away. Soon he's lost any remnant of moral compass that he's had left and wastes everything in self-indulgent living. In other words, he becomes prodigal, meaning wasteful. And that's why we call this the parable of the prodigal son, as if it were a story only about the younger one, the restless boy. In the movie version, he'd be played in the 1950s, by James Dean. And since then, by Brad Pitt, Kiefer Sutherland, Nicolas Cage, Will Smith, and maybe Alexander Ludwig. No relation. To name a few bad boy types. The prodigal son part of the story is appealing. It's brutally honest about the kind of trouble that can happen in life. You know how it goes. The younger son leaves home like so many of us when we're young, seeking a new life, hopeful, oblivious, wrong-headed, wanting his freedom but unsure what to do with it. And then out there, far away from home, things go south very quickly. The bright lights aren't as bright as he thinks. Some friends turn out not to be friends. One bit of debauchery leads to another. He tumbles until he hits rock bottom, and there he is, far from home, broke, desperately hungry, not a friend to be found. No one gave him anything, says Jesus. So ashamed and alone, he takes a job, the kind they say for undocumented workers. He's paid under the table and probably with some pretty sketchy terms. Anyway, he finally comes to his senses, faces up to the reality of his lousy choices, and heads back home. But he knows where he stands now, right? He intends to say to his father, "I blew it, Dad. I have betrayed you and the family name. I don't expect to be treated as your son anymore. Treat me like a hired servant." But there is a stunning and humbling surprise in store for him, right? His father sees him coming in the distance and doesn't hesitate for a moment, and full of joy and compassion, he runs down the road to meet his son, embracing him, kissing him on the neck. Calling back to the house, he says, "Bring a robe, the braided one. Bring him a ring. Bring him sandals. Prepare a feast. Let the music begin. My son's home. My son who was dead is alive. My boy who was lost is found." Back in the far country, no one had given him a thing. Now he comes home, and his father gives him everything. It's a story with a couple of interesting turns, and it might be our story too. Maybe we haven't hit bottom as hard as he has, but who among us hasn't experienced times when, our life has just unraveled, when we've made poor choices, when we have acted out of our own worst instincts? Who among us has not at least once longed for the mercy and restoration this story promises? We like it, this parable of the prodigal son. Unless, of course, we identify more with the other son in the story. As I pointed out, the parable begins, there was a man who had two sons. The younger son has this older brother, a brother who has not left home, a brother who did not look for something flashy, and instead just worked the fields of the family farm. We pay less attention to this son because, frankly, he's not as vulnerable, not quite as cute and likable. He gets overlooked because he often comes across as a stick in the mud, a sanctimonious jerk in some interpretations. He reminds us a little of the jealous and cruel stepsisters in the fairy tale Cinderella. What happened is that when his younger brother comes home and the music and the dancing begins, the older boy is out in the back 40. And when he hears the party going on in the house and finds out that it's happening because his despicable brother has come home, he's furious. So angry, he stays outside. He won't join the party. Well, we might be tempted to let him just stay out there in the growing dark. But remember, there was a man who had 2 sons. So this man, this father who earlier had gone down the road in love and compassion to welcome his younger son home, now goes back outside, this time with love and true understanding for his other son. But he runs into a buzzsaw, and every parent knows what that feels like. Every parent of an older child. The boy is enraged. I've been here all along, Dad. I have cared for you. I have cared for the farm. Never once did I cross you. I did everything you asked. But did you ever even host a feast for me? And now this son of yours who blew everything has come home, and you are serving barbecued rib? It's easy to think of this older brother as resentful and a bit self-righteous, but that's kind of unfair because we actually know this older brother, and frankly, some of us are the older brother, right? Most of us, maybe even. He's the one who stays home to take care of things, and when the time comes around, his aging parents, too. He's a true Presbyterian. When his siblings call asking how everyone is, they say, I wish I could help you out, John, but, you're so glad you're taking care of Mom and Dad, but, I live way down here in Manhattan Beach. He's the one who balances his parents' checkbook, who sits with them when their memories are fogged by the beginnings of dementia, who stays up through the night to care for them when they have COVID. He's the one who, when everybody around him seems to be partying away without a care in the world, he wants to know if his sacrifice counts at all. He's the one who cries out from the depths of his heart, Dad, do I matter to you? Have you ever thought to give a party for me? And every parent who has more than one child knows that you love them all, but true love demands that you love each child differently. One child is shy and withdrawn and needs confidence, while another is almost too eager for attention and needs something else. One child's lonely and cries herself to sleep at night. Another child takes too many risks for her own good. Some children are carefree to the point of carelessness, while other children try so hard to be perfect that they can't forgive themselves when they are not. Mother's love, father's love is not abstract. It's love that seeks to know just who each child is at bottom, what each one requires, and then strives to give each child the kind of love, the kind of blessing, if you will, they require. When the younger son in the parable came home ashamed and feeling unworthy even to enter the house, the father ran down the road to give his son the love he needed, the tender embrace of mercy. To the older boy who won't come near the house, the father says, Son, you wonder why there's been no party for you? Well, there's been a party going on for you your whole life long. And now I want to give you something even more precious. I want to give you your brother. You think the world's unfair? Here's how we make the world fair. We offer your brother unmerited mercy, which makes unmerited mercy for you and me possible too. It's the same speech that Bishop Marianne Buddy gave Donald Trump the second day of his second presidency. Without talking down to him, showing maximum respect, she showed him how he could begin to make the two halves of this divided country one again by offering mercy to those on the margins who are living in maximum fear. Well, as I said, every child requires a particular brand of love. My favorite short story is about just that. It's called I Stand Here Ironing. It's by a woman I met once, and I'm just so glad I did. Her name is Tilly Olson. Here's the first sentence. And like the really good ones, it begins right in the middle. I stand here ironing, and what you ask me moves tormented back and forth with the iron. Reading on in the story, we discover that the woman who's ironing is a single mother of 5 children, abandoned by her husband. And now some authority figure, a teacher or a social worker, has asked this mother to come in to talk about one of her children, a daughter born just after the Great Depression, a child who this authority figure says needs help. So the mother is ironing and thinking to herself about her troubled daughter as she irons. And she says this: she was a child seldom smiled at. Her father left me before she was a year old. I had to work for her first 6 years when there was work. She was dark and thin and foreign looking in a world where the prestige went to blondness and curly hair and dimples. She was slow where glibness was prized. She was a child of anxious, not proud love. We were poor and could not afford for her the soil of easy growth. She is a child of her age, of depression, of war, of fear. And then, as the painful memories of her daughter's life flood her, this mother, knowing deeply the kind of love her daughter really needs, silently cries out in a form of prayer that we all pray, if not to God, to the universe. Help her, she says, help her to know. Help make it so there is cause for her to know that she is more than this dress on the ironing board, helpless before the iron. Mercy. Mercy. It's the name of the hospital my grandmother died in 1955. It's the unanswered appeal Bishop Buddy made to Donald Trump. It's the word, the call, the prayer that this year, 2025, is all about. Sadly, because every single day now, some new cruel order is coming down from on high, aimed at the hearts of the poorest, most vulnerable, most powerless among us. It's what those of us who are prodigal need, you know. And also what those of us who are angry and resentful may need even more. Yes, and even those among us who hold all the power. Mercy. If we, all of us, only knew how much.